What's up, y'all? Welcome into another edition of DNVR Rams Live, presented by our friends at Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com, use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Hope everybody had an awesome, fun, and safe Halloween weekend. Admittedly, I'm never a huge Halloween guy in terms of dressing up and all that. I did get to give out candy, though, which was cool. Gave out all the candy. I was pleasantly surprised by the amount of trick-or-treaters my neighborhood had. Was also pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed a weekend without CSU football. It was a nice, needed refresh, I think, for a lot of us. That border war was just such a dejecting performance. We're to the point now where, as I said last week, it's basically a run-out-the-clock scenario. I honestly can't remember a more irrelevant CSU football game than the matchup we're going to have with UNLV on Saturday. There's just really nothing at stake. I guess technically speaking, CSU could still win out and reach the New Mexico Bowl or something like that. It's not going to happen. But, I mean, you've got the winning streak over New Mexico. That's, in theory, something to play for. The last game against Air Force in the Mountain West, that's, you know, a trophy game at the very least. And the last game that you'll have in the conference, Boise's kind of the standard that everybody holds themselves to. You've got something to play for in all of those games. What do you have to play for on Saturday against UNLV? Not a whole lot, but we will talk a little bit of football. I'll play a clip of Tyson Summers talking about what stood out to him about UNLV, gave some insight into offense, defense, and special teams, also talked about a lot of the personal connections he has to the staff. I forgot that he worked for Dan Mullen in 2021, so that'll be kind of an interesting little storyline in all of this, but we're mostly going to focus on hoops today. Obviously, the Farokhmanesh era begins tonight against Incarnate Word. Looking forward to being there. Going to be a crazy couple of weeks. I'm not going to lie, I'm going to do my best to give you guys as much in-depth hoops coverage as I can, but between the Avalanche and CSU football still going, and I go to Broncos games. I mean, it's going to be a chaotic couple of weeks here. A lot of sports being consumed. I'm looking forward to talking about all of it. How about that Tory Horton performance last night, guys? I mean, 2 touchdown performance on Sunday Night Football. You love to see it, making all of us proud to be. I know he shouted out Fresno instead of CSU during the video montage at the beginning. If I had to guess, that's probably due to the relationship that he has with Jay Norvell. He and Jay are super tight, so I'd be pretty surprised if he wasn't pretty pissed when CSU fired his guy. Obviously, you hope that that's a relationship that, as time goes on, you know, it kind of heals all, and we can get him back on campus because, I mean, he really was a great Ram. He's certainly always going to be beloved in Fort Collins, and I just keep coming back to the fact that had he stayed healthy, I think at worst he's a 3rd-round pick. I think he's good enough and productive enough that he would have been a 2nd-round pick just with the way he runs, and we're seeing how that translates at the next level. I mean, 6 total touchdowns already, 5 receiving. I don't know what he's got to do to get some love in the Denver radio waves. If only he was a backup quarterback that had 0 professional snaps, then maybe he'd be worth talking about, right? But just really cool to see everything that Tory's doing in Seattle. And for those of us that watched his collegiate career up and personal, it's no surprise at all. I mean, he is as talented as any football player that I've covered in the program. And I mean, what if the Rams had a full season out of Tory last year? Do they get to the Mountain West Championship game? I still think it sucks that he didn't get that opportunity to go into Fresno and show what he could do against them. He's a Fresno kid. They never even offered him. all preseason, we had heard how he was kind of circling that game on the calendars and really looking forward to going back home and balling out. And obviously that game did not play out the way that any of us hoped that it would, but it's just been cool to see. It's just been cool to see what Tory's doing with the Seahawks, and we're certainly stoked for him. Speaking of next level Rams, Nique Clifford making his not NBA debut, but first appearance as a pro back in his home state of Colorado tonight with the Kings. I was a little bit worried that he might not be able to go tonight after he had that hamstring injury that he suffered in the first game, but he played last Saturday. That was good to see. Our guy Ryan Green was at shoot around this morning, was able to get a video of Tory speaking with the local media on what it means to him, or Nique, excuse me, mixing them up now, what it means to Nique Clifford to play back home tonight in front of his friends and family. It's a bummer that it overlaps with the CSU home opener in the beginning of the Farokhmanesh era, because I think there would have been a lot of Ram fans in attendance, and there probably will still be quite a few anyways. But let's play that clip of Nique Clifford, and then we'll kind of transition our way into hoops talk. I'll give some factors that I think will be important for CSU's success this year. I'll give out 15 preseason predictions. Never going to be able to top the one I had last year, where, I mean, calling them going to the tournament by winning the Mountain West tourney for the first time in 2+ decades in the preseason was mostly luck, but it was a nice little pull for me, and I'm always going to go back to that one. It's going to be tough to top, but we'll try to. We'll have some fun with it. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. Say what's up in the Toyota chat. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple or any of those other platforms later on, and you wouldn't mind leaving a comment, giving us a 5-star review, I certainly would appreciate it. Helps us with the old algorithm. But here is Nique Clifford talking about what it means to him to play with the Kings, whether he's starstruck or not. A couple of really interesting questions he was asked. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Maybe. We can always come back to it if we can't make it happen behind the scenes. If you missed it, and then maybe we'll just get the clip here in a sec. If not, I'll come full circle after we talk hoops. CSU football did have a decommitment. Unfortunately, Cedric Ross announced his decommitment the other day. He's the second verbal to drop in the last month. John McClellan, the linebacker, was obviously the first. Ross hurts a little bit more. He was one of the guys in this upcoming class that I was pretty excited about.
It's been amazing, man. It's everything I dreamed of. Starting the first night, kind of made history, like one of the first rookies to do that in the Kings for a while. So, I'm super blessed to be able to do that. And honestly, just trying to grow and learn. And it's been fun just trying to adjust to this NBA level. But I feel like I fit right in.
Obviously, you've been in this arena a million times in your life. Just kind of what was it like this morning walking in, knowing you're playing here tonight?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I was kind of just, it didn't even feel right that I'm actually playing here, a place that I've come and watched a lot of games growing up, getting to have all my family and friends here. It's going to be a special moment.
And just who have you learned from so far? Obviously, this is a very veteran team. You're one of the only young guys on the roster. Just kind of what's it been like learning from some of these guys that have been around, won a lot of games in their career?
Yeah, real legends I got on my team. Russ, DeMar, I don't got to name them all, but a lot of dudes that have a lot of knowledge, done this for a long time, and so I just pick their brains every day, try and learn things, and just pay attention to what they're doing on and off the court, how they go about their routines, and just the way they compete at a high level every night. True professionals, so it's been good to have them.
How have you approached the rookie season? How did you approach the rookie season as a whole? I mean, obviously, you had a great summer league, kind of raised your stature a little bit, and obviously getting the start. I'm sure, you impressed the coaching staff. Kind of how did you approach going about, picking your spots, minutes-wise, and all that kind of stuff? How'd you gone about that?
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of rookies get to play in general, so for me, I'm in a great position to be on the floor, getting minutes. My approach was just really to impact the game however I can. We got a lot of guys that score the ball, so for me, I've been trying to approach it just like being a defender, being a guy that brings energy, rebounding, doing the little things, and then the offensive side will come when I get my touches, when I get my opportunities. But just want to be an impacting player for our team when I get on the court to be impactful and help our team win.
We talked about this a lot throughout your college career, but you had just about every role feasible throughout your 5 years in college. Did that help you kind of going into the NBA knowing that whatever role they ask, you've done it already?
Yeah, definitely, and I feel like I can do it at a better level now because I wasn't used to doing that at the college level at first, but going through that helped me learn how to be more impactful in my roles and whatever the case may be. And every night calls for something different. Like it might be your night some nights, but other nights you might not score the ball. But you got to be able to make an impact in some way or form if you get in the game. So that's kind of what I've been focusing on, and it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Just last thing for me, I mean, so far, who's the guy you've been most starstruck by on the court, and who are you looking forward to going up against, whether it's a former teammate or just somebody you've always admired, looking forward to facing up against?
Honestly, I really don't get too starstruck. Like, at the end of the day, these dudes are human. They're high-level players, of course, but I don't get too starstruck. But, there's been some high-level guys we've gone against. Luka, who else?
D-Book.
D-Book. A lot of different guys that do it in different ways, in their own ways. So it's been cool to just see that up close and personal. But I honestly feel like, I belong right there with these guys, so I don't get too starstruck by it.
So do you expect a lot of people here tonight?
Yeah, a ton. I don't know how many. It might be 200 to 300 people I don't even know coming. Just gonna show up out the
Half of
woodwork.
Colorado Springs.
Yeah, but it's gonna be. Hopefully, it's loud for us tonight.
All right, always cool to see Nique. It always makes me smile to see him on an NBA court. Just one of the cooler stories that I've gotten to cover up close and personal. One of the more genuine athletes I've ever covered in my career. Was a little bit chaotic before that video, so my apologies. My technology kind of crapped out on me a little bit. It's going to happen. Live TV, baby. But as I was saying before the video kind of played unexpectedly, CSU football has decommit and Cedric Ross, speedster out of Texas, a track star, guy who'd been very productive out of the Lubbock area. I'd gotten to know him a little bit behind the scenes, so definitely a bummer. I think he's somebody that will more than likely land P4, probably in the Big 12 if I had to guess, but kind of a tough break, and I would be surprised if we don't see a decent amount more of decommitments between now and mid-December. It's just going to be part of the process. Aaron in the Toyota chat says fortune favors the bold in regard to the preseason prediction last year. Also added, as far as anticlimactic CSU football matchups go, he says Daz versus Jay was pretty anticlimactic. That, of course, was the 2021 regular season finale. Nevada whacked CSU. That was senior day, though, and at least in theory, it didn't play out this way, but you had some pride to play for, given that it was senior day for the McBrides. At that point, it wasn't really sure whether Daz was going to be back or not. The way that the game played out probably solidified that he wasn't back. But Bobo versus Boise to end the 2019 season, that was pretty anticlimactic as well. But just not a lot to look forward to this weekend on the football side of things, and that's why we are going to focus today's show basically exclusively on basketball. We will talk a little bit more football at the end of things, but I'm stoked to get into this team because I think the Rams are being undervalued in the preseason. If you missed it, they were picked 7th in the Mountain West Media preseason poll, as they were a year ago. A lot like I understood it last year. I understand it to a degree this year. I think logically teams 4 through 7 or 8 or so are kind of all in the same tier as far as preseason expectations go. I do think San Diego State and GCU on paper are the heavy favorites, and they certainly are when it comes to the betting stuff. I think New Mexico is going to be good. I think Boise's going to be good. Utah State tends to be good, and with Falls Lev coming back, they still should be a team that makes noise in the Mountain West. I understand that CSU has to replace basically 85% of their scoring and their minutes. It's a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of new pieces. They're going to be very dependent on a couple of young guys that are returning, making a substantial leap, as well as a lot of new guys, 8 new players on the roster in total to come together and gel pretty quickly. That said, deceptively, I do think there's more experience on this roster than people see just kind of glancing at all the new names. They do have 6 guys with 50-plus career games played. Jevin Muniz is the most experienced with 97. He's got 96 career starts. If I had to guess, he'll start at the wing to begin the season, but I do think it's going to be a battle there, and it's going to be a battle at a lot of the positions this year. You've got realistically 12 guys that could play decent minutes for this team if things were to go right for them, and really 13 if you count Docker Tedeschi, who's another guy who I'm pretty excited about, but I think it would just make sense to redshirt him based on the amount of players that you have on the team. Oh, we got Jay Lake tuned in live from Denmark and the Toyota chat. Super cool to see. One of my all-time favorite Rams, and certainly appreciate the nod, man. We're gonna have to get you on the show. We're gonna talk more about CSU hoops, the Farokhmanesh era, throw out a couple of bold predictions. I'm gonna talk about some important factors I think with CSU having success this year. Let's shout out a couple of our awesome partners, and we will keep this party rolling. Hey, Colorado, stop by your local Dick's Sporting Goods for the hottest apparel and footwear from top brands like Nike, Adidas Originals, Hoka, DNVR, and more. Plus, score the latest equipment for baseball, football, soccer, basketball, golf, all your tailgating essentials. If you find a lower price, they'll match it with their best price guarantee. Still pretty surreal that we are now in Dick's Sporting Goods. You can find our shirts there. If you happen to see one, snap a picture. I'd love to retweet you. It's just crazy to think. I mean, when I first started with DNVR, I think it was like 11 of us. We had this little office in Lakewood. Now we got the bar and multi-level studio, and we're in Dick's Sporting Goods, and it's just pretty crazy. Get your gear fast with free curbside pickup at your nearest store, or easy shipping from Dicks.com, because every season starts at Dick's. I also want to talk to you about Denver's favorite local wing joint. Of course, I'm talking about Fire on the Mountain. They feature hormone-free, antibiotic-free, and cage-free wings. They've got 15 super flavorful, made-from-scratch sauces, from mild to insanely hot. They've got everything in between. I'm a big teriyaki wing guy. I kind of like if you can get like a spicy and savory going, I'm big into that. But they've also got an incredible craft beer list. They've got killer cocktails. They've got $5 beers on Mondays. Plus, it's happy hour all day long on Tuesday. Homemade appetizers. They've got Wagyu beef blend burgers. Takeout and delivery is offered. They've got vegan options. So, I mean, they really have got something for everybody. Awesome patios at each location. Try their insanely hot El Jefe challenge, spicy wing eating challenge. We'll boast the happiest, most overeducated, overqualified employees in the service industry due to their generous benefits. Make sure you check that out. They've got, again, 15 super flavorful flavors. Got a little bit redundant there. But check out the $5 beer specials Monday, happy hour all day Tuesday. Shout out to our friends at Fire on the Mountain. All right. Let's get into it. Drum roll, please. The Farokhmanesh era is here. I think everybody in the community, for the most part, feels like CSU made the right decision. It's always going to be a tough spot when you lose a coach of Nico Medved's caliber. We don't need to rehash all of that. I'll certainly be rooting for his success in Minnesota, and I think it's a situation where it just made sense. It's his alma mater. He'd been loyal for a long time, had a lot of success. It's just tough to turn down what's your dream job, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't get that thing rolling eventually, although it certainly will be an uphill climb in a really deep basketball league like the Big Ten. But it's not like the Mountain West is any slouch, you know. I see all these preseason projections and people that are supposedly experts on the sport having the Mountain West as a 2 bid league. They just haven't been paying attention, I guess. I'm not saying it's going to be a 4 or 5 bid league every single year. Even moving forward, and the conference realignment stuff certainly going to impact and hurt what is a terrific and really fun basketball league. The Mountain West is still going to be a multi-bid league moving forward. UNLV, GCU, Nevada. I mean, that's a really solid base. The depth isn't going to be what it was. I still feel like, though, it's going to be a fun league, and obviously the Pac-12 should be a lot of fun as well. But we've got one more year here in the Mountain West. Can the Rams exceed their preseason expectations? Some of the factors that I think that are going to go into that. How high of a level can they defend consistently? To me, that was kind of the big difference with last year's team and the year before compared to some of those early era Medved games. They were always able to get good looks offensively. They had always been a program under Nique that shared the basketball well, that got high quality looks in rhythm from multiple levels, but especially along the perimeter. Always have been kind of a streaky shooting team, but the looks, they were good. The process offensively, you loved it. You didn't really have to worry about that too much. Defensively, though, they certainly had a ceiling early on, and I think some of that had to do with, early on you're playing a lot of young guys, young Roddy, young Jay Lake at one point, young Isaiah, and Isaiah grew a lot as a defender as his career went on, as did all of those guys. But the last 2 years, man, this program had been a top 50 team in defensive efficiency pretty consistently. I think peaked at 27th at one point. I mean, top 30 is next level. But if you can be a team that's even top 65, top 70 in terms of defensive efficiency this year, I think the Rams should be right there in the mix. They've got a nice variety in terms of the roster that they've constructed. I think they've got some positional versatility. They've got guys that are going to be able to defend multiple positions and switch anywhere on the floor. I love that. I love that they have some continuity in the front court, which can be a challenge, as I've often talked about. It's not easy for 4s and 5s to play in this system because of how skilled you have to be on the offensive end, everything you have to do from a passing standpoint. It's not for everyone. And I think at times CSU's maybe been a little bit limited defensively in the paint, but this year, some of the guys they've got coming back, I think we'll see Jorgensen make another leap there. He should be more of a 4 this year instead of a 5, which I think is going to be better suited for him in really every element. But you've got Japa that can come off of the bench. You've got Bemba, who's obviously a high-level defender. Bemba may not be 6'8" out there, but he's never had any issues dealing with some of those bigger body types. And then to me, one of the big X factors is Kerry Booth. What can Kerry Booth be for this team defensively? I think his explosiveness, his ability to be a shot blocker should be really, really fun. But if the Rams can defend at a high level like they have these last 2 years, I think that is the difference between being a team that's good, certainly going to be a tough out for anybody, and potentially being another NCAA tournament team. I think the standard for this program has been elevated. I don't know if it's necessarily at a point where you would say it's NCAA tournament or bust every single year. I don't know if we're quite there yet. I think we're knocking on the door of that standard if it hasn't been set yet. But I do think there is a world in which this team goes to the tournament for a third straight time, for a fourth time in 5 years. And that's because I personally don't expect all that much to change with this program. I think Ali was a tremendous hire. I think he's going to maximize guys. I think we'll see guards improve the way that we always have under him. But I love that you have some continuity on that staff, even having lost, Nico and Cooley and Joe Desmond and some of those guys that all went to Minnesota with Nico Medved. Tim Shelton does a hell of a job developing guys in the front court. And I feel like he has been a direct reason why we've seen CSU make a leap there, and why they've had more success, in the post against some of those teams with size that maybe kind of bullied CSU early on in the Medved era. Progress takes time. We always want it to be a linear ascension, and it can kind of be all over the place at times. But I really do feel like there is a path to this team being pretty good, to winning 20-plus games, all of that stuff. How good can they be away from Moby, though? I do think that is going to be a big factor. The Rams were really tough out on the road last year. They won, I think, 7 true road games in the conference slate, which was a record for CSU. I mean, it's not an easy league to win on the road in. You look at the venues you have to go to, and I know this year you aren't necessarily going to all of the venues, like you don't go to Nevada, I believe. But, like San Diego State, Boise, those aren't easy places to play. Neither is Utah State or the Pit, one of the toughest places to play in the country. Those are 2 of the tougher venues. And even some of the less talented teams, Wyoming and Air Force, just from the altitude and the wonkiness of their play style at times, like those aren't easy games either. And that team 2 years ago that started hot and then was basically, 500 at times in the Mountain West, they struggled a lot to win away from Moby. Last year's team really, really successful out on the road. Can you split the difference? I don't think you're going to win 7 Mountain West road games again. I also don't think you're going to lose your first 6 or whatever it was like they did the year before that, before, eking out a couple of them. But if they can have some success away from Moby, if they can continue to defend at a high level, as our guy Swole says in the Twitter chat, the defense got better when Tim Shelton joined the staff. Could not agree with you more. I like this team's chances of being a top 4 team in the Mountain West, and that's kind of where I have them going into this year. Of course, we'll get into the preseason predictions here in just a second. One factor I am interested to see with this group in particular is who becomes the go-to guy in the crunch time. And, there were a lot of different guys that hit big shots for CSU over the course of last season. Jalen Lake is a guy who had multiple game winners in his career. I felt like we saw Jorgensen step up and hit some big shots in some pretty key games, both in the conference tournament and like in that win over Wyoming and stuff like that. But you have had an NBA guy on the roster for 5 straight years between Roddy, Isaiah, and then Nique. They had that guy where if we just need to put the ball in their hands for a play or two and count on them to get it done, you felt pretty good and being able to lean on those guys. Obviously, Nique had an incredible season last year, 681 points. That was a program record. You felt really good when Zay was shooting in the crunch time. David Roddy hit a ton of big shots before that. It feels like that role is kind of TBD at the moment. It's up in the air. Maybe it's Josh Pasquarelli who becomes the clutch shooter for this team. He certainly has no qualms putting the ball up. Was a really significant scorer at Marist before he came over. Maybe Kerry Booth, elevates in a way that's more dramatic than we anticipate, and he becomes that guy. Although, again, as I've said a bunch of times now, incredible athlete, extremely high ceiling as a player, but still raw and inexperienced, is going to take time to come into his own. Don't expect him to be Nique Clifford from March last year right out of the bat. But, I mean, athletically, what that guy can do is damn impressive. But who kind of becomes the go-to guy when things are tight late, when you absolutely need a bucket to tie it or to win? Who's that guy for CSU this year? I don't know if we know going into the season. And it's been about a half decade, really, since you could say that. And that is a little bit unnerving, to be honest. Like, if you are looking for reasons to, I think fade the Rams would be the wrong way to put it, but at least have reasonable levels of skepticism or doubt. I think that is a factor in it. You don't necessarily have the same star power, at least defined going into the year, that you have had in previous seasons. I am also curious, like as guys try and step up and maybe establish themselves as that go-to guy, can you do it with 12 guys all fighting for spots in the rotation without having individuals go too far outside the system, especially this many new guys who don't have a ton of familiarity in live game scenarios together? What does that ultimately look like? CSU's been one of the best teams in the country at sharing the basketball, assisted on 62% of their made field goals last year. That was 9th in the country. They're almost always, top 30 in assisted turnover ratio and assist totals. You still want to see the foundation of what's allowed this program to be successful, which is that team first, share the ball mentality to be prevalent. Yes, there's going to be times where guys just got to put the ball on the floor, like we saw from Nique over the years, like we saw from Zay. I mean, all kinds of guys. Jay Lake had a nice little floater where he'd put the ball on the ground and attack the hoop. Like, there are a lot of different guys that we saw step up, but can you strike that balance of guys trying to be the man while still playing winning basketball that sets everybody up as a team? And that's a really tough balance to strike, especially with this many transfers and especially with this many guys who have a realistic path to playing time. The reality is when you have 12 guys that can assumingly play, at a D1 level and probably carry a decent load for you if given the opportunity, there's going to be 2-3 guys that are the odd man out that aren't getting the type of minutes that they want, the type of role that they want on the team. Can you get everybody to stay together as you kind of refine your rotation over the course of the year? I felt like they did a masterful job with that last year. I thought it was one of the more impressive elements of the coaching staff all last season, being able to find that balance. And they actually extended the rotation as the season went on, which you don't see all coaches do just because they get stubborn and set in their ways. I think the depth of this team is one of its greatest strengths. I think the depth of this team, though, could also potentially be a pitfall if you have a season that goes, the negative way. It can be that way because it's just human nature. Guys want the ball in their hands. They want to play. How mature can you be? How selfless can you be? Are you willing to sacrifice in the name of team? Felt like we saw a ton of that the last couple of years, and it's what made that roster so special. It's what made them so fun to cover. You had really talented players, but you just had really high character dudes in Isaiah Stevens and Nique Clifford and Jalen Lake. And, you can go even further back, the Patrick Cartiers and Joe Palmers of the world, Joel Scotts. Like, I can name so many great dudes that have come through the program. I really like the guys that have been around, so far, but how do you act? What are your true colors, in the thick of the competition? That is still to be determined. We're going to get into our preseason predictions. I've got 15 of them for you here in just a second. Let me shout out a couple of other partners. We'll keep this going. Whether you need snapbacks, truckers, fitteds, beanies, or tees, our friends Branded Bills have you covered with performance and style. If you're looking for gear to make your brand stand apart, Branded Bills has you covered with the best custom headwear. Start your order. Their dedicated team will help you create the exact custom apparel you need. They've got a partnership with CSU as part of their on-campus collection. You can find their hats in the bookstore. But why would you pay full price when you could go to brandedbills.com, use that code BBDNVR, and get 15% off of your first order? I've got a couple of different versions on the set there. I've been really fortunate to get to work with Branded Bills, co-founded by a CSU alum, which you love if you want to support Rams. Great way in doing so, supporting companies that were started by Rams, and of course, supporting companies who support our great show. That was quite the tongue twister. I'd also like to shout out Coors Light, who encourage you to choose chill, to rise above. It can be tough between the chores and the struggles of being alive, man. It's challenging. Had to put like $1,000 into my car last week. That's never fun. You've got raking coming up, man. Like, that's like some of the least enjoyable chores there are. I'm a guy who doesn't mind getting out in the yard, working with his hands, but raking, it's brutal. You don't want to be a bummer, though. You don't want to be the guy that goes out in his backyard, that rakes, then he comes in, he's just in a bad mood. You're not going to be a chill hang. Choose chill, rise above, and then, of course, crack open that ice-cold Coors Light. It's cold lagered, it's cold filtered, it's cold packaged for a smooth finish. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Visit CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. All right, I gotta slow down here. I'm getting tongue-tied. I think one of the biggest factors for CSU this year will be what type of leap the returners are able to make. You're going to be very dependent, obviously, on these transfers playing a substantial amount of minutes. You're going to need them to account for a lot of the scoring. If you don't hit on the portal guys, this team's not going to be very good. But what can Rashawn Bemba be for you this year? I mean, I've pointed it out a million times. I saw they added it to the media guide. I think Steve Ivey was the originator of this stat, and I mentioned it over the course of last season. But the Rams are 26-5 when Bemba plays 15 or more minutes in his career. Like, it's astounding how good they are when he plays, and they have beaten some really good teams. If a guy like him, if Kyle Jorgensen can be 15 to 20% better, which feels realistic based on the amount of experience he gained last year, and he certainly showed that he's not scared of the moment. If you can get quality play out of those guys in the front court pretty consistently, I think with the players that they brought in from a scoring standpoint, you're going to be okay. But I feel like the continuity in that front court is quietly one of the reasons that CSU is going to exceed expectations this year. Those guys can play. And I mean, we saw the attitude that Japa brought to the team, and I felt like they kind of needed that at times last year. He's going to be battling for minutes. They've got so many quality pieces, probably all of them I would say that there's a world where they could play a bigger role, and they'd love that. But if those returners can make a big leap, I think it makes this team really dangerous. And then obviously, what can you get out of somebody like Darnez Slater or, Jonathan McConan? Both those guys, highly athletic. Both those guys show all the right things in practice. I think there's a world in which one of them or both of them pop and potentially outshine some of the transfers you were expecting to have a big impact this season. I think that there's, I don't know. I don't want to say it's completely up in the air, but I think there's an opportunity right now for basically every guy in that 12-man rotation that I've referenced to show something this year and kind of carve out a piece of the pie that's their own. They can establish some type of role within this system, but it kind of comes down to what type of buy-in do you have, and then what are you willing to sacrifice? And I've really liked what I've seen in the small sample size, couple of practices, haven't been there every day or anything like that. But I think that there's 12 guys that can legitimately play. And I think there's a world where we see, 10 plus guys average more than 20 minutes this year. I think there's more minutes to be given out. For one thing, you're probably not going to have anybody that nightly is giving you 35 plus the way that you were always going to get that out of Nique and Zay. There's a lot of minutes on the table. It's just a matter of who's willing to step up and produce in a way that, shows they can't be taken off the floor. And I think that's what's exciting about this year. I think there's a lot of opportunity on the table for a lot of different guys, and it should be a lot of fun. I think you've got guys that have the right mentality, and I think that the guys that came back did for a reason. People like Japa, like Jorgensen, they understand their fit in the system. I think both of those guys could have transferred to like Minnesota and had roles with the Gophers. I think from their personal development standpoint, though, this is the perfect spot for them to be at. And that's what's exciting, is because that, to me, demonstrates a level of maturity that not necessarily everybody has at the collegiate level. And that's not to say that the guys that transferred are immature, because I understand Croc wanting to follow Medved, and I understand Cayenne wanted to play for UNC and getting paid almost $2 million to do it. I mean, anybody that says they would turn down that money, that opportunity to play at UNC, they're probably lying to themselves, just being real. Like, I bleed green and gold. I've been a CSU guy my whole life. It'd be hard to turn that down. How could you not want to do that? One of the premier brands in college basketball, and you're going to make how much? I mean, it's an incredible opportunity. But they got some guys back that can play, and they got some guys back who I think are in line to make a nice little leap this year, and Bemba and Jorgensen. And if there's a world where Japa pops more too, I think that would be huge, because I do think that there's minutes there for him, at the 5, if he is able to seize the opportunity. Missed some time in the preseason, as did Augie. So we'll kind of see what things are like for them early on as they get into the flow of the season. But with that in mind, let's get to our 15 preseason predictions. I don't have any that are as bold as last year. It would have been tough to replicate it, and I didn't want to go so far off the reservation that it never even had a chance of coming true. What made last year fun was that despite it being a nice call, it had a lot of thought behind it, which was that I do think they're going to be a really good team eventually. I just think they're going to struggle out of the gate. Didn't think they were going to struggle as much as they did in November and December. Didn't think they would be as hot as they were. Didn't think they'd be 16 seconds away from an NCAA tournament, or from a Sweet 16 berth, excuse me. But I did feel like there was a chance for them to be hot at the right time. It played out that way. It was a lot of fun. I think it'll be somewhat similar this year. I think we'll see a hotter start. Part of that being the non-conference slate it's not a cakewalk, but it's not a gauntlet either. I think there's a path to 10 wins in the non-con. So let's get into it. KenPom, I think, has CSU winning 19 games. Again, the Rams were picked to finish 7th in the Mountain West. I think CSU wins 20 plus for the 3rd straight year and 6th time in the last 7 years, outside of a ton of injuries, which was the case the only time they didn't go north of 20 over the last 7 years. I would be shocked if this team isn't good enough to win 20 games. I do think the league's going to be good. I think their conference schedule, especially at the beginning, is a tough way to ease into things. But prediction one, CSU wins 20 plus for the third straight year, 6 times in the last 7 seasons. I have the Rams going 9-2 in the non-conference slate. I said there's a path to potentially going 10-1. I do think it's there. You'd have to win the NTE likely, but I've got them at 9-2 in the non-conference slate. That would include a win over Virginia Tech. Based on how I did the math, I have them dropping game 2, which would likely be St. Mary's, another really good program, and then losing the Loyola game on the road and winning against CU at home. My third prediction, I've got CSU beating CU at Moby in front of a sold-out crowd. And let's add a little bit of fun to it. I'm going to say Kerry Booth has a double-double in that win over CU. And that's kind of the coming out party for Kerry Booth. We're going to see him flash a little bit early on, and that's going to be the game that gets everybody excited and creates probably unrealistic expectations. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and to have it happen against CU would be really cool. I have the Rams winning the first 10 home games of the Farokhmanesh era. You know, you pull up the non-conference schedule, and again, I feel like it's pretty manageable. Especially some of these home games, you know, you're starting with Incarnate Word, DU, some games like that. Those games you most certainly should win. You ideally would avoid a landmine scenario like they had last year in UC Riverside, which was a really fluky situation. We're actually going to see that dude that went for 30 plus again because he transferred to CU. Don't love that. But, you know, Incarnate Word, Omaha, Cal Poly, DU, those are all very winnable. Got to beat CU, obviously. Dartmouth, New Mexico, whatever. And then they open the conference slate at Utah State, home against Nevada, at GCU. I'm going to say they lose those first 2 road games, but win the home ones. And because of that, they win their first 10 home games of the Farokhmanesh era. But they're going to drop their first 3 road games. I've got them losing at Loyola. I've got them losing at GCU, as well as that first game against Utah State to open up the conference slate. Just tough venues, man. Again, like it's a really tough league to win on the road, and even really good teams struggle. So I don't feel like that's me being pessimistic. I think that's just kind of realistic and what should be a really fun and deep hoops league. I've got CSU. I put 14-6 in conference slate originally. I've got them at 13-7 after I kind of wanted to account for there maybe being some hot and cold to this team at times, just with so many, you know, moving pieces. Again, I think they'll be pretty good come February, come March, but it might be kind of a tough stretch to begin with some of those matchups, playing New Mexico, playing GCU and Utah State all in the first 4 conference matchups. You don't love that, but I got them 13-7 in the conference slate, give or take a couple of games. I think they've won 14 plus 4 times, so it certainly would not be impossible. But I just think this league is good. Like, that's less about me being down on CSU and more me being high on the potential for the league this season. It's the exact opposite of Mountain West football, which is what makes CSU football being this bad that much more annoying. Is that league is wide open and there for the taking. San Diego State looks pretty good, but other than that, I mean, even Boise and UNLV are struggling. I mean, basketball, you've got 6, 7, 8 legitimate programs who could all feasibly be in the mix. I think San Diego State, I think GCU on paper, a clear cut above everyone else. But I mean, Utah State, CSU, Boise State, those have been great programs the last couple of years. And UNLV, you know, they can hang with anyone. They seem to beat themselves more than anything. Nevada, been a little bit hot and cold the last couple of years, but a really good program. As Aaron says, Bart Torvik has us at 12-8 in the conference slate. So I've got him a little bit better than him. That seems right on for me. And that 12-8 to 14-6 range. If you're a little bit better than expected, maybe win a couple of games, you shouldn't maybe get to that 14 mark. But I think 12, 13, 14, right around there is where CSU is going to be at. I've got the Rams sweeping San Jose State, Fresno State, and UNLV. But I do think they're going to get swept by San Diego State. I just think the Aztecs are that good this year. Fortunately, you only play GCU once. You never know. CSU is always up for that matchup, especially at Moby. But if the Aztecs stay healthy, I think they're a Sweet 16 team. It's the preseason. I'm not trying to get carried away, but just the experience, the depth, and the athleticism they have, that's going to be a really tough team. I'm going to give out the rest of my predictions here in just a second. Got to shout out our partners one last time. Shout out to everybody for rocking with us on this Monday afternoon. You guys make all this possible. Couldn't do it without you. Couldn't do it without our awesome partners at Shady Rays either. You know the moment when you realize you've left your favorite sunglasses like at the beach or maybe on a plane or a hotel or something like that. It's heartbreaking. You know, you're 3 states away. Now what are you supposed to do? Well, if you've got Shady Rays, you don't have to cry over it. No sweat at all. Every single pair is backed by lost and broken replacements. Shady Rays is changing the game, guys. They have awesome, good-looking, polarized sunglasses that are durable, and they're not stupidly expensive. They're not trying to, take an arm and a leg for a pair of shades. And again, every single pair is backed by lost and broken replacements, which for people like me, that is just a godsend. We've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com. Use that code DNVR for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. I also want to talk to you about the official vehicle of DNVR. Of course, I'm talking about the Toyota. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA for generations. Toyota's built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails, whether you are hauling the weight of the world, there's a Toyota truck that's just right for you. Check out the Tacoma. Check out the Land Cruiser. Toyota has 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive like the Epic 4Runner. They also offer more low and zero-emission vehicles combined than any other automaker. They've got 16 hybrid vehicles to choose from, like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. That's just fun to say. And of course, you can just go with a classic like the RAV4, the Grand Highlander. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics. They are the official vehicle of DNVR. Toyota, let's go places. Aaron says, I forgot to check my calendar. Is it Toyota-thon again? I'm sure we'll get those commercials any day now. Getting back to the predictions, we're about halfway through here. I've got Jevin Muniz leading the team in steals this season. He has 11 games with 3 or more steals in his career. Might play a little bit smaller role than he has over the course of his career, but I think he's a guy who, especially early on in the season, the Rams should lean on his experience. 90-plus career starts is nothing to scoff at. There's a reason he had significant interest, including from programs like New Mexico. He's a guy who can stretch the floor a little bit for you, can rebound, do the dirty things, defend at a high level. I've got Jevin Muniz leading the team in steals this season. I'm going to say Josh Pasquarelli will have a game in which he hits 5 threes. I think his ceiling as a shooter is the highest on the team based on what we've seen to this point. If you're curious, Cayenne was the last to do that. He did it in the NCAA Tournament win over Memphis. I also think that Josh Pasquarelli will have a 30-burger this season. Nique was the last Ram to score 30 points in a game. He scored 36 in that regular season finale win over Boise State last March. I've got the Rams scoring 100 points for the first time since dropping 106 against Adams State on December 29th, 2023. 93 was the season high last year. A little bit surprised that team didn't top 100. They did it twice the year before. Having some fun with it. You got to get a little bit quirky, right? I'm going to say the Rams play a double overtime game this year. It would be the first time they've done so since they went to 3 overtime against Tulsa in 2019. If you remember, Isaiah Stevens hit the game winner, first of 2 game winners that season, also hit one against Nevada. Let's have some fun. Say the Rams play a double overtime game. Shout out to our guy, Robert Bookman, for becoming a new YouTube DNVR member, part of the DNVR Supporters Club. It's a great way to support us at DNVR. Certainly appreciate you guys. Appreciate everybody in the Toyota chat as well. Great to see it so active on a Monday afternoon. Wrapping up with our preseason predictions. CSU will beat someone by 30 plus this season, but they will also lose a game by 20 plus. It might be San Diego State. Just like the Aztecs are really good. But I'm going to say the Rams thump someone. I think this team is going to be a little bit streaky offensively. I think you're going to see them, put 90 on the board pretty consistently. I also think there could be some 2 for 22 type games from 3-point. That's just kind of how it's going to be in this system. You're always stoked about the looks that they get, or almost always stoked But there's just going to be some nights where you don't shoot the ball well. And, I think over the course of the season, you'll see the Rams thump quite a few teams. And I think they'll get thumped once or twice as well. I'm going to say CSU finishes 4th in the regular season in the Mountain West. I'm going to say they at least make the semifinals in Vegas, but I've got them making the championship game. Maybe don't win it again, but I've got them. I think they've kind of cracked the formula for what it takes to sustain success in that tournament format. They've always been good at MTEs, gotten to the semis pretty consistently under Medved. I'm hoping last year it kind of sets a precedent where CSU is year in and year out, at very worst in the semifinals. Finally, I do think the path to an NCAA tournament is more difficult this year, just given how much uncertainty there is, how many moving parts, how many new pieces. But I'm going to say the Rams get hot at the right time again. I'm going to say they sneak into the NCAA tournament. Maybe it's a play-in game in Dayton. But I think the Mountain West gets 4 bids, and CSU is going to be the 4th bid, so long as there's no crazy bid stealing or anything like that. They sneak in with an at-large bid. I do think that their national perception has been elevated. I think that if it was, like what was that, 2021, where they were the 2nd or 3rd team out, I think if it came down to a situation like that, maybe the Rams get the benefit of the doubt now in a way that they just wouldn't have, back in 2015 when, Larry's team was the highest rated RPI team or whatever it was to miss the tournament. But if they can get to the tournament again, man, 3 straight years, 4 times in 5 years, I keep coming back to national perception and all that. I just think that would really put CSU on the level of a program that we've been striving to be. And, you hope to keep climbing even after that. Eventually the standard becomes not just making the tournament, but winning a game. And then it's, not just winning a game, but winning multiple games and making it to the second weekend. I mean, you're always striving for more. But I feel like there is an opportunity here for the Rams to be pretty good in year one under Ali Farokhmanesh. And if everything pops in a major way, they could be quite good, quite dangerous. I think there's also a world in which they're a little bit up and down, just given how many moving pieces there are. But I have confidence in this staff. I have confidence in the talent of the players that were brought into the program. I think they did a good job of getting system fits. And I'm excited about the potential for CSU this year of really making some noise, but it might be a stressful selection Sunday, as our guy Kevin is saying in the Toyota chat. It definitely could be tough. Joey B says, I just chat GPT'd song list at Jam's football season wedding. Bee Gees and ABBA's not included. Oh, there'll be some Bee Gees and ABBA. More than a woman. Got to get a little bit, man. The people got to dance? Look at how pale I am. You gotta get the white folk dance classics when it comes to the wedding mix. But that's something I need to get on. For the record, the fiance has been getting on me about that. There's like some app thing we have to fill out for the DJ. It's not for a year, but apparently it needs to happen now. Yeah, that's where we're at. Before we get out of here, I do want to give a couple of thoughts on Saturday's game. So let's play a clip here of Tyson Summers. I know he's such a quiet talker. I'm working on getting a Rode mic to kind of improve the audio level. I know it can be a little bit all over the place when we play some of these practice clips, but I'm working on it. So here is Tyson Summers talking about what stands out about UNLV, and then we'll wrap up with a couple thoughts on the game. We'll give an updated Mountain West power ranking. We'll call it a day. What stands out to you about this UNLV team?
Well, I think a lot of things. It's this game's interesting for me. Obviously, it's a very good football team. 6-2. Coach Mullen does a great job. But I worked for Coach Mullen in 2021, and very appreciative of him. Corey Dennis is offensive coordinator. I've known Corey Dennis since before he was born. My dad grew up together in Macon, Georgia, and we're high school teammates. And his dad was my director of administration at Georgia Southern when I was there. So I've known Corey his whole life. So it'll be it's interesting, to be able to see those guys. The O-line coach Mike Soline was a GA for us when I was at Florida, and does a great job. Ricky Logo, the D-line coach, gave me my first Division I job. I was a GA working with the D-line at Troy in 2004. And then when I was here 10 years ago, he was the D-line coach that I hired. So there's a lot of people on there that are personal for me in it. I think, offensively they do a great job. And it's kind of a mix of Coach Mullen stuff from Florida, that you're used to seeing, and it's a pretty good mix to go with it of Coach Dennis and what he did in his time at Ohio State. And so they've done a nice job of blending that. They've got good players. I think the quarterback is one of the best players in the league. They have, a lot of running backs. They play them well. All those guys are home run hitters, and they get them in and out of cuts very, very well. The receivers can all beat you. They're all long-bodied guys that can run all of the deep routes that you want them to, and they make plays when the ball's in the air on one-on-ones. The tight ends and O-line complement really well together. You don't see them have bust. You see them communicate well, and they do a great job of being able to give the quarterback the opportunity to make the plays he does. Defensively, they're a 4-2-5 defense. Coach Gunther has been in the NFL for a long time and has kind of moved into this role with Coach as the defensive coordinator. I think they do a really good job, Coach Logo does, with the defensive line of playing with an attacking front. The linebackers do a nice job in flow, and then, Coach Gunther does a good job with the secondary on the back end, but they want to be able to play aggressive in their 4-down pictures that they have. Special teams-wise, they're a top 10 punt return team in the country, and they've done a great job with that. And really, when you start talking about punt, they're very problematic with all of the scheme that they have and how they move pieces around. And with their kickoff and kickoff return team, they find ways to be able to get the right people in the right places to make plays. So I think they complement each other well.
All right. Give everybody a chance to potentially adjust their audio there. I think Tyson Summers is a good dude. I think he's in a pretty brutal spot. Obviously, was highly critical after the performance we saw against Wyoming. Still would be. It just was unacceptable. Realistically, I don't know what he's supposed to do to get much out of this team at this stage of the year. You'd like to see them play for personal pride. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll come out and surprise us. UNLV is atrocious defensively. I mean, significantly worse than any Mountain West team that CSU has played to this point. Probably the worst defense that they've played since, well, on paper it was Washington State, and then Washington State basically stifled CSU's offense. But yeah, I mean, they're a bottom 10 scoring defense in the country. They give up about 200 rushing yards a game, multiple rushing touchdowns. That, in theory, could be beneficial for CSU and that, four-headed monster that they have at running back, although the monster has been, I don't know, offset a little bit with the struggles that the passing offense have had. It's got to be better. Obviously, I asked today what they'd seen from the passing offense. Mentioned that he felt like Brousseau was pressing things far too much in that game. Hopes to not see him do quite so much of that. Likes what he's seen as far as the response goes. Again, though, I recognize they're in a pretty tough spot. Joey says, such a downer finishing the show with CSU football stuff. We've got to laugh so that we don't cry, my friend. We've got to laugh so that we don't cry. Speaking of which, let's wrap up with an updated Mountain West power ranking. We did put CSU at 11 up from 12. I do think they are better than Nevada. We put them at 12 after the border war, mostly because I was in my feelings and still pissed off about that showing. But we've got Nevada at 12, CSU at 11. They're intensely battling for the title of worst team in the league. Wyoming at 10, just above CSU. Offensively, they're a mess. Now they're injured at quarterback too, so I don't know what they're going to do moving forward. Anderson's been struggling. Sims, the dual threat guy that had some success against CSU, looks like he's going to be out for the year. Tough break. Air Force at number 9, mostly because they can score. They just have the best offense out of these bottom 4 teams. Defensively, they are a mess. San Jose State coming off of their best win of the season, home win against Hawaii, kind of a thriller, 45-38. Might be figuring it out. P.S. Look how good this power ranking graphic looks. Shout out to our guy, Yaya, super producer, hooking us up. San Jose State 8, Utah State 7. Utah State all over the place. They're coming off of the bye, but they got thumped by New Mexico before that. Really like 7 through 3, just kind of depends on the day of the week and which way the wind is blowing. But Hawaii at 6, disappointing that they weren't able to pull out that win over San Jose State. Could have really made an argument for them as high as 3 had they been able to pull that out. Fresno at 5. Nobody goes into Boise and beats them. I know Madsen got hurt and played like trash before that, but winning on the blue is highly impressive. that might end up looking like one of the more fluky wins that CSU's had in a long time. Crazy. I got UNLV at 4. Took all of me not to put them at like 5 or 6. I just don't like that team. I hate how they play defense. I don't feel like it's sustainable at all offensively, despite some of the explosiveness that they have. But Calandria has been a lot better than I anticipated, and I do want to give him credit. I've got New Mexico at 3. I don't think they're that flashy. I don't think their top-end talent is on par with the other top 4 or 5 teams, but I also think that they have a toughness that they embody, and there's a path to UNM winning like 8-9 games this year, legitimately. Boise State falls to 2. First time they have not been in the top spot all season. Does not look good for them with Madsen likely out for the year. Then San Diego State at 1. I've said it for a couple weeks now. I've been flirting with it. I've been, test driving the take a little bit. They're the most complete team in the league right now. I think defensively, they're night and day. They're significantly better than anybody in the conference. And the big difference this year is Sean Lewis has been able to figure out how to move the ball with consistency. And Jaden Denegal has taken a major leap this year. San Diego State really, really impressive of late. We are in overtime right now. If you were watching on TV, you can catch the end of the show at the DNVR. All right, before we get out of here, Kevin says, you'd think the players would want to show out on tape for their transfer portal options at the very least. That is a good argument, one that I've talked about with Kevin Lytle behind the scenes. I don't know if it's a great way you can operate for like an entire month. Like it feels like maybe more of a 1 to 2 game type approach realistically. But that is kind of a message you probably say if you're the coaches. Look, we understand a lot of you are either going to choose to go somewhere else or be encouraged to go somewhere else by the next staff. What kind of film do you want to be able to send out? Because there are a whole lot of guys who hop in the portal and they don't find anywhere to land. And that's just the cold, hard truth of college football in the modern era. But yeah, you hope to see some pride play out over these next couple of weeks. To be honest, feels more likely that they lose out than win a game at this point. I just does anybody think they're going to beat that New Mexico team in Albuquerque? I know CSU hasn't lost to UNM since 2009. Maybe that's one of those weird things in the universe. But Boise, whether they've got Madsen or not, feels tough to see CSU going into that venue and winning. The Air Force probably going to run for 300 yards. There's just not a whole lot to play for over this last month. It's really unfortunate that this is how it's all played out. I do hope that we get some news on the coaching hire here pretty soon that'll kind of revitalize the fan base, get everybody juiced again, thinking about the future, because I do think it should still be an exciting time going into the Pac-12 next year, opening up against Wyoming. There's a lot to be excited about, but really it's all about the future at this point and trying to retain a couple of these top guys you have on the roster, but really looking at what's probably going to be a much-needed reset after greatly, greatly underperforming this season. Would be funny, though. Would be funny if CSU won the next couple of games just to give some sense of false hope and then, have it be peak Ram life, like win 2-3 in a row and then get thumped by Air Force or something like that. That would be the peak CSU experience if we're being real. But that's all I've got for you. I'll have post-game coverage tonight from CSU basketball. We'll be going live again Friday. We'll talk hoops. We'll talk UNLV. Maybe we'll get a guest on if there's anybody you'd like to see us have on the show. I'll never feel like you can't throw out any suggestions. Try to be a man of the people. Try and give you guys what you want. Much love to our super producer, Yaya, behind the scenes, making everything happen. Much love to all of you for tuning in. We are always proud to be on the DNVR Rams podcast, y'all. Thank you for listening to the DNVR Rams podcast presented by Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off your first order. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.